The New York Mets brought out the brooms and swept the Cincinnati Reds on Wednesday and did so in convincing fashion, piling on 10 runs. On the show today, we're going to talk about how the Mets crushed the deadline. Daniel Vogelbach, Tyler Naquin, Darren Roth. This offense is on fire right now, and it is thanks in large part to the moves that this team just made to acquire those three bats.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, this Mets team is just on fire right now. 6 wins in a row, 15 of their last 17. They are just cruising now, 73-39 on this season. And if the Braves lose again tonight, we'll see what happens. They won yesterday, but you never know. Playing out in Boston, if they lose that game, the Mets could have an 8-game lead going into an off day. If not, still a 7-game lead will be pretty sufficient here for this team that just keeps rolling. And we're going to talk about the offense a lot today, and obviously that's the big story in this game. I don't even think we should go inning by inning. The Mets put up, 3 crooked numbers in this game. They scored in 5 different innings, 13 hits as a team. Just go up and down the lineup. Brandon Nimmo goes 0 for 3. Guess what? He still scored 2 runs. Francisco Lindor goes 2 for 3, drives in 2, scores 3 runs, drew a walk. You had Pete Alonso go 3 for 5. He had a rough series, finally breaks out of a bit in this one, has an RBI in the game. Daniel Vogelbach, we're going to talk about that trio the Mets brought in a lot today. Vogelbach, once again, contributes in a big way. 2 for 5, score a run, 3 RBIs. And the most important thing about Daniel Vogelbach is this guy has a sense of humor, because he walked up today to the song Milkshake. You know it, right? My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And Vogelbach's milkshake is certainly bringing the fans to the yard. I love a big guy that's got a sense of humor, and that absolutely cracked me up today, as I'm sure it did for a lot of you Mets fans. I can't imagine what the reaction was when you were actually in the building, not expecting it, and that popped up. Before the game, they actually released like a full song sheet of all the different walk-up music, and Vogelbach was not on there. I don't know if they wanted to lead that surprise for when he stepped into the box, but man, that's just one of those little things. It's not indicative of the team's success or anything like that, but it's just something that makes you enjoy the journey a little bit more. It's kind of like in 2015, there was the parakeet, right? And Yoenis Cespedes has the parakeet arm sleeve, and there's the parakeet in the ballpark, and that becomes like a thing. That's what I love about when you get into this type of a season. That's what makes baseball different than any other sport. It's a soap opera. It's every day, and some of these things can just pop up and become a rallying cry or just a fun inside joke that you share with your fans. And I hope he keeps it. I know this was just before Women's Day or whatever they were celebrating today. It would be awesome if he held on to the music for a little bit, because I think it would end up just becoming electric in the ballpark. And it has been electric in the ballpark for the last couple of weeks here, in particular, since Vogelbach entered the lineup and this team went on this run. But you have him contributing. Jeff McNeil drives in 2. He goes 1 for 3. Tyler Naquin, another big day for him. He goes 2 for 4. He homered. He doubled. He scored 2 runs. Just an outstanding game for him. Mark Canha goes 0 for 2, but draws 2 walks. Louis Guillorme goes 2 for 4, scores a run. And James McCann went 1 for 4 and scored a run as well. So every single hitter in the lineup got on base yet again. Everybody but Nimmo and Canha got a hit. You had multi-hit games out of Guillorme, Naquin, Vogelbach, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and hitting with runners in scoring position, 7 for 14 as a team. it doesn't get better than that. When you're producing like this offensively, you're going to win a ton of games. And like I said, we're going to talk about the 3 additions. And I'm really going to kind of break down in the final segment today the different stages we've seen the Mets have offensively this year. There was a good start, a really slow middle, and now a scorching hot team coming out of the All-Star break. But before we get into all of that and talk about the deadline additions, had to shout out Taiwan Walker. Today, I thought we were going to talk about how the Mets had the best starting rotation in baseball, but considering the contributions they got out of Vogelbach and Naquin, I kind of changed courses. That's something that I'll probably do a podcast on next week, doing a deep dive into this starting rotation. Obviously, you're going to see a big series coming up with Scherzer and DeGrom taking on the Phillies, and that is still the strength of this rotation. The ceiling lies in those two, but to have Taiwan Walker as essentially your 5th starter now, that's amazing, man. The guy's got a 3.43 ERA. He only gives up 2 runs in this start, goes 6 innings, had 1 inning where, gave up a couple hits, and, ultimately Joey Votto gets an RBI double and then eventually gets to third base with less than 2 outs and scores on a sac fly. And he got plenty of run support. So it's not like you're knocking Taiwan for giving up a couple. 5 hits allowed, walked 3, struck out 5. He won his 10th game of the season with this outing. And then from there, the Mets were able to go into cruise control a bit with their bullpen. Seth Lugo did pitch, but that was probably just to get him a little bit of work. Got an off day on Thursday before a big series against the Phillies. Trevor Williams went 1, didn't want to burn him as a long man, so that's all that he goes for. And they get Adonis Medina in the game as well to pitch the final inning. And you look up, and it's another solid pitching performance. Obviously, you're playing a bad team in the Reds, but you got to beat up on these bad teams. And just winning the series, as much as that would have been fine and acceptable, this is a team you should sweep. And so the Mets handle business. That gives them a little more leeway when you're playing the Phillies, because you know what? Let's just say the Phillies take 2 or 3 this weekend. Not the end of the world, and you just got an extra game that you might not have had if you didn't handle business against the inferior competition when you're facing a team as bad as Cincinnati. But next, what I want to do here is focus back in on the 3 additions that Billy Epler made at this deadline. I know that fans quibbled with them at the time, but man, all of them are just coming up absolute money for this ball club. The lineup is on a different level since they made these additions. I want to go through the numbers that each of these guys has put up in just a minute. But before we get to that, whether you're ready to pop the question or if you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. There you can build the engagement ring of her dreams, as Blue Nile has simple online tools to let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind, so you can celebrate life special moments with fine jewelry from Blue Nile, where they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale, where you can save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece by going to BlueNile.com today. When we look at Billy Epler's moves at the trade deadline, it's pretty simple. First, they replaced Dominic Smith with Daniel Vogelbach. Next, they got Tyler Naquin to replace Travis Jankowski. Finally, they end up with Darren Roth to replace JD Davis. You look at what they've done as a collective right now, and I'm just looking baseline run producing stats, right? RBIs, new trio, 22. Old trio, 40. Now, this is a discrepancy in at-bats, by the way, where the old trio, you're talking about 369 at-bats, the new trio, 88 at-bats. They have more home runs, the new trio does. 5 home runs compared to 4, all of them belonging to JD Davis. 8 doubles compared to 18. Same amount of triples, 2 each. And then you get to the individual OPSs. Daniel Vogelbach, OPS over 1,000 with the Mets at 1,062. You got Naquin at 1,254. And then you got Darren Ruf at 800. Meanwhile, you had JD Davis at 683. Travis Jankowski at 453. So about a third of what you're getting out of Naquin. And Dom at 560. The upgrades have been immense to get these guys in there. And it's just a better at bat. Like Daniel Vogelbach, every single at bat, it seems like it goes to 3-2. The guy just has great plate discipline. That's what I was saying. As soon as they made this move, you looked at the whole picture of his season, and you had to throw out the left-handed at bats, or facing the left-handed pitchers, I should say. Because once you threw that out, you saw a guy that was giving really great at bats against right-handed pitching. And now that he's in that specialized role, it's perfect for him. He is thriving. He is drawing his walks, and he's coming through in some big RBI spots. And he just gives you a different presence behind a Pete Alonso. That is why this lineup has taken off. It has been the insertion of Daniel Vogelbach. Now, that does not mean that he's doing it himself, because we just spent the last 2 days talking about Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, who have been the driving forces of this offense since the break. They've been incredible. They've been, right there with Daniel Vogelbach, who's hitting 349 as a Met with a 481 on base percentage and a 581 slugging percentage, 2 home runs, 4 doubles, 10 RBIs, and 6 runs scored. Those two guys have been just as good, if not better, but now you got a trio in the middle of that lineup that you like. You already had Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte. The lineup has gotten so much longer. You throw in a Jeff McNeil. Now your first 6 are great. Tyler Naquin is giving you, more than you ever could have expected. Of the additions the Mets made at the deadline, Naquin was the one that I was the least sold on, only because I wasn't quite sure what the role was going to be. I didn't think that he was going to come in and play as much as Mark Canha. But you looked at his numbers against right-handed pitching, and it made some sense. Although Canha has reverse splits this year, you just got another guy who could hit. You trade Travis Jankowski out of the mix here. Obviously, they DFA'd him, but you drop a guy that was just giving you speed and defense, which was a fine role early in the season. But you now add another bat to this lineup, and that just gives Buck Showalter more options. He's really splitting time now, really letting everybody be fresh. And I think you get to a point where all egos can be dropped when you have so much talent on this team. And I think there's some players that maybe will thrive not going out there in the grind of playing every day. Maybe you're seeing that from Canha and Naquin and some of these other guys. Now they're competing with each other to get at bats, because if Tyler Naquin is hitting 367 as he is, with a 387 on base percentage and an 867 slugging percentage, 3 home runs already in his first 10 games, that's going to put Mark Canha on notice that he's got to step up to continue to get at bats in the lineup. And that is the friendly competition that you inspire when you bring in more major league talent. And that's what the Mets did here. Travis Jankowski was not giving you competitive at bats. Tyler Naquin is, and that changes the complexion of your team. And then you go to Darren Roth, who still hasn't even gotten started yet. He's got a much more limited role facing the left-handed pitching, but he mashes in those spots. As a Met so far, he's 5 for his first 15. He's driven in 5 runs. He has scored 2. He has a couple of doubles. He's been good, and I didn't even realize this when they got him, but the positional flexibility that he brings is something that's really nice. Vogelbach, I don't think we'll ever see him play an inning in the field this year. I just don't imagine it. Pete Alonso is a better defensive first baseman, and the days where Pete's not going to play first, it's likely going to be when there's a lefty on the mound, and Darren Roth can go out there, because Darren Roth is much more athletic than a Vogelbach. Darren Roth has already played in left field for the Mets, and he gives them another option there. You now have 4 outfielders that you're comfortable starting, with Naquin getting brought into the mix, as opposed to before, where your 4th outfielder was basically Jeff McNeil, and then you just went to Jankowski as a late inning defensive replacement and a speedster. You don't have that guy now that can come off the bench as the pinch runner and swipe a bag necessarily. Tyler Naquin has some speed, but he's not really a stolen base threat. He has he did have 1 for the Mets so far, but 4 on the season. Career high with 6 as a rookie. That's not his game, but he runs the bases well, as does Darren Roth. Actually, I wouldn't call Darren Roth fast, but he certainly has sneaky speed. We know Vogelbach has all the wheels in the world. Obviously, I'm joking on that one, but these guys have fit in so perfectly. It's very similar to the Kelly Johnson, Juan Uribe additions back in 2015, but those guys were nowhere near as impactful. They were impactful in the sense that they brought in some major league, veterans that were replacing guys that weren't that good. But I'm even going to look up the stats right now as I'm thinking about it. I don't imagine either of them had an OPS over 750 if I had to guess. They were not that solid. Kelly Johnson, 718 OPS on that team. He hit 250. Juan Uribe, 730 OPS. He did hit 6 bombs, and Kelly Johnson had 5. But really, that team took off when they got Cespedes because Granderson also had a great second half. And obviously, David Wright gave you some contributions. Duda was really good in the second half. Murphy was great in the second half. And then they had Michael Conforto debut as a rookie. That's really what made that team good. But adding the veterans was something that put them over the top. I don't know if what the Mets trio right now is doing is sustainable. I don't imagine it is. Like, you're not going to see Tyler Naquin have an OPS over 1,200 for the remainder of the season. That's just not realistic. But what they've given you in this short burst has already made all these trades worth it, because the one thing we could say about the deadline, as much as Mets fans weren't happy with it, I still believe, regardless if you think they overpaid on Ruff or if you love a Colin Holderman, I don't think that they overpaid, or I don't think that they might have overpaid, but I don't think they gave up a single prospect that's going to change the fortunes of this farm system. And they did enough to infuse this team to win now that they're getting to the point where they're going to be on cruise control. You know, you have a couple of series right now. This is a tough stretch here. You still got the Phillies. You still got to play the Braves to start next week in Atlanta. Then you got the Yankees, and you still have the Phillies again. Or maybe it's the Phillies, then the Yankees. I think it's actually the Phillies, and then the Yankees to close out the stretch. And then you're kind of in a position where you're going to play a lot of bad teams. You can just continue to feast on that inferior competition. I think this team is set up right now that they should have no problem, as long as they do what they're supposed to from this point out. Not only win this division, but win it convincingly and set themselves up for a deep playoff run, because you also are eventually going to get to the point that we're going to have to talk about playoff seeding and how that factors in as well. I mean, you might be chasing down the Dodgers to get that top seed in the playoffs and get home field advantage. That's something that could become the race of the second half that we're going to have to monitor. But amazing stuff we've seen out of these three guys. I want to actually expand things out and look at the team offensive numbers, pre-June, post-June, post-deadline, and kind of show you the evolution of this lineup and where they stand right now. Before we get to that, though, first, I want to tell you about your liver. I don't know if you know this, but sustainable weight loss is actually through your liver, because it is the body's metabolic furnace. It's responsible for flushing out harmful toxins and igniting your fat-burning metabolism. But thanks to modern diets rich in unhealthy processed foods, most of us have an overworked liver. Now it's easy to rejuvenate your liver health, though, and reignite your metabolism thanks to the Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. The Liver Health Formula contains 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract, all of which work together to wake up a sluggish liver and turn it into a toxin-flushing and fat-burning machine. Best of all, the Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long-term. As a listener of our show, you can try the Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of their Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit is a safe and all-natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to those naughty foods you don't want in your body. This makes it a perfect complement to the Liver Health Formula. If you want to try it today, go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. Again, that's getliverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. And you can try the Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. So if we want to talk about the Mets as a team offensively, I really believe we can split the year up into 3 parts. You had the first couple months before June 1st, where they were a top 2 offense in baseball. You then have from June 1st until Vogelbach, is the way I'm dividing this. So that's June 1st until July 24th, when he was inserted into the lineup, where they struggled as a team. And then you have from Vogelbach till now, which is an offense that's been the best in baseball. Going to the beginning of the year, as a team, they hit 268, right? That was the best average in baseball. They had a 339 on base percentage, the best on base percentage. That just shows you the great at bats that they were taking. Now, their slugging percentage was not among the league leaders at 412. It was solid, but not great. Their WRC plus, though, was at 117. Now, that again measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So a 117 WRC plus means the Mets were 17% better than your league average offense as a team. Now, you look at FWAR. Now, this is, of course, adding all the position players, wins above replacement together. For the Mets, that was a 10.7 F4, second best behind the Dodgers, who are at 11.3. You look at just the offensive runs above average, the Mets at 38.2 were way above everyone in the league except for the Dodgers, who still had them in that market, 43.7. Bottom line, an amazing offensive team that passed the baton and really did just do a good job of working at bats and having a game plan and sticking to it. That's what this team has been all year. It's there's a process in place, and I don't know if that starts with Eric Chavez and how much that trickles down from the analytics department and everything else. But they have a process in place, and no one throws away at bats. And you look at the end of the game in the last inning. Lindor had a 10 pitch at bat in a game the Mets are winning by 8 runs. They don't ever look at a game where they're either losing by a bunch or winning by a bunch and say, yeah, we can just mail in these last couple of bats. They fight through everything. So that was the team that we saw earlier in the year, the identity that we thought the Mets had. And you could bank on that being a team that should have been able to really find their way through the season and run away with this division. Then the Braves started to catch up. They're a home run hitting team. They started having a ton of success. And you look at what happened from that point on. If we go back and you look at from June 1st, right, up until July 23rd or through July 23rd, as a team, you look at the Mets and where they stood, and this was not a team that, was atop the lead. This was a team that struggled a little bit during that span. They were the 21st ranked offense when it came to F4, but then you go to their WRC plus, right? At 96, also 21st ranked. You go to their average as a team, 231. On base percentage, 303. So that 231 average, that had him tied with the Mariners for the 25th best or 5th worst, I guess, in baseball. The on base percentage, which, like I said, not that solid. Where was that at? At 303. That was also 25th. The slugging percentage at 372. That was down, bottom 5 teams in baseball. So, yeah, they were not a good offensive team. And there was reason to worry. There was reasons to think, man, is this lineup going to be the problem here? Are they going to come up short again? Is this going to be a repeat of 2021? I was never jumping off the cliff to that extent, but I did think they had to make additions. They had to shake something up. And the DH spot was the biggest problem because all year long, it started with Robinson Cano. It transitioned to Dom Smith's job. Then it became JD Davis's job. And there was a platoon that was going on there between Davis and Dom, but they eventually just gave Davis a lot more run. And he was the best of the bunch, but the best of the bunch still had a sub 700 OPS all season. Travis Jankowski being in the mix at times, that wasn't a great option. They tried Nick Plummer for a stretch. The rookie didn't pan out. You were calling, or I was calling, for Mark Vientos for all this time. We never saw him. Now we probably won't see him because the additions the Mets have made have been so impactful that you don't have to do anything else. You see the Braves, they just promoted Vaughn Grisham, their top prospect, out of AA, the exact same thing they did with Michael Harris. Last time it worked out great, and he's a really solid hitter and has a really bright future. To me, even though it could have been the best move for them to solidify that second base position that's been kind of a turnstile ever since Ozzie Albies went down, it feels like a panic move. It feels like the Braves are searching for answers, and Adrianza and Robbie Grossman aren't quite the big moves that all the Braves truthers thought they were at the trade deadline. And so you get to this point now, and honestly, I'm actually mad at myself because we have our trade deadline grades that we wrote for all 3 teams at Just Baseball. And I kind of got pushed down a bit where I was going to give the Mets a B+ because I felt like overall the Mets deadline with those 3 offensive additions was really solid, but they came up short when it came to adding to their bullpen. I still feel that way. But I got pushed down to a B, and we gave the Braves a B also because that's how much we sort of felt like the addition of Raisel Iglesias as their closer, that's how impactful that could be for them. But if you remember, I also did a podcast right after the deadline where I said I thought the Mets had the most impactful deadline. And now that we're seeing it play out, there's no question in my mind that their deadline was more impactful than any team in this division, even though the Phillies have gone on a little bit of run themselves here. And David Robertson is a big help to them. But You look at what the offense has done since Vogelbach came into the picture, it's the best offense in baseball, and it's not even close. A 152 WRC plus compared to the Dodgers, who are sitting at 133. They're, what is that, 19% better? Quick math. Yeah, 19% better. You look at the offensive runs above average. That's 12 points higher than the Dodgers. Their F4 as a team at 6.2. That's 0.9 better than the Dodgers. The Dodgers are still a wagon themselves. Don't get me twisted. That's still a great baseball team. But now the Mets are right back to hitting there at 306 is their average now. What was it again? The beginning of 268. So they're on a different planet. A 306 team average. Obviously, it's a small sample size. That's nuts. That's nuts. 377 on base to lead the league. The slugging percentage at 508 leads the league. As a team, they're walking at 8.3% clip. They're only striking at a 17.2% clip. 22 home runs for this Mets ball club, finally ranking atop when it comes to team home run leaders. They're fourth right now, tied with the Athletics of all teams. And then you have the Yankees with Aaron Judge hitting probably half of those home runs, the Phillies and the Brewers ahead of them. But again, it's just a quality effort across the board. And also for Spencer Strider, guess what? A 347 BABIP, right? So it's all luck. Okay. Watch the Mets at bats and tell me it's luck. This team has put together a lineup that is now really deep, top to bottom. The only hole you have is the catcher position. And I've liked some of the at-bats they've gotten from Nito recently. James McCann, I think, is actually on a 3-game hitting streak, probably the quietest one of those. Do you call it a hitting streak on 3 games? I don't know, but he's getting some hits. The Mets could go with just defense at the catcher position, or if they want to go for the nuclear option here, they can call it Francisco Alvarez and make this an even scarier lineup if they wanted to. Bottom line, though, is every single move that Billy Epler made at the deadline has come up beautifully at this point. We'll figure out the Givens, trade was worth it or not later. But to get the production they've gotten out of those 3 guys, it's changed the complexion of this team for the remainder of the season. Now, on the show tomorrow, a Friday farm report. We haven't talked about it yet this week, but Brett Beatty is up in AAA. So I'll be joined by Jordan Grossman to talk about that. Jose Budo got promoted at the same time. The Mets, maybe top starting pitching prospect, at least when it comes to his, MLB readiness and the impact he could have. We'll talk about those 2 guys on the show tomorrow and preview a very important series at home against the Phillies. As always, though, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go instead today with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.